Friends in a Podcast. We're so glad you're here.
We're your hosts, Natasha
and Lindsey.
Hi, everybody. We're so glad you're here. We're jumping back into another conversation about friendship, and we're glad you're joining us.
Today I was thinking about games that we used to play when we were kids, and I was thinking about Mother May I. Did you ever play that when you were a kid?
Oh, yeah.
I love that in Girl Scouts. We played it all the time.
Really? We would play it at recess sometimes, but my favorite was Red Rover. I don't know why. It was like the excitement of being on different teams, and I always wanted to show everybody that I could break through the arm, because you had to hold hands, right? For Red Rover.
Right.
And I was like, I've got this. Like the inner dialogue, 8-year-old me was like, I'm going to show them how cool I am by how fast I can run. And
when we were kids, our cousins used to play it, and they would do it in a way to clothesline you. So they would raise their arms up last minute and knock you out in the throat. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
sometimes it was brutal. Yeah.
Yeah. My other favorite game was Red Light, Green Light. I just think there's such a good lesson in that game. Red, stop. Green, go.
Yeah.
And we can use that in our adult years. Red means stop, green means go.
Yes. I loved that game as a kid. That one was also right up there for recess games or gym. We would do that in gym a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's a little bit more like everybody has to fend for themselves because you just have to stop at the right time, right?
Right. You have to be able to understand what red means and what green means.
Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. If only friendship was quite that straightforward.
It would be great. Or any relationship, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Red means stop, green means go. So
yeah. No, but I feel like sometimes we take those red flags and we just tiptoe the boundaries a little bit to see how red is red.
Is this fire engine red, or is it really just mauve?
Yeah, pink. It's a pinkish. We're not quite there yet.
Is the light going to turn yellow and then red, or are we just going to jump to red? Yeah.
We never really hear about yellow flag friendships. Maybe that's another episode.
What does a yellow flag look like in friendship as opposed to green and red?
That's a great question. Are you trying to find out if it's a red flag, or are you trying to find out if it's a green flag? Are you in the neutral zone?
Oh, that is a good question.
And today we're talking about all the green flags. What is one of your favorite green flags?
When
you're thinking of friendship.
Yeah, we were just chatting about this before we recorded, and I think for me it's easy conversation. I don't know about you, but I've had conversations with people that I was trying to establish relationship with, and if the conversation isn't flowing well, or it feels hard to get it going, you're pulling for information or they're not willing to share, it's really hard to feel like you can move forward because you're trying, but if it's not being received well or they're not willing to share, then it makes it a little bit harder.
No, I agree with you. I think of one of my current relationships, and when we first met each other, we were having breakfast together, and I felt like I was asking a ton of questions on this breakfast outing. And then afterwards, when we talked about it, they're like, yeah, I definitely felt like you were interviewing me, which made me laugh because they were very quiet during the breakfast. And it made me laugh because in my career, I am a recruiter, and so that's what I do. But I find myself when I'm in those awkward situations where someone's not talking at first, I do kind of turn on that interview mindset. And so it's what do you like to do? Oh, where do you like to do that? Where do you like to go? What's your favorite color?
Yeah, I wish I had that skill because I just filled the silence with me rambling. And so I've definitely walked away from conversations with people who are a little bit more reserved and felt like, oh my goodness, did I even ask them how they were doing or what's going on in their life? Because I was just bulldozing the conversation because I didn't know what else to do. And then it makes me feel bad that maybe I wasn't being attentive to what they were thinking or feeling because it was silent. So I'll just fill it with more words, and sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not. I don't know.
No, that's fair. And then I feel like on my end that I'm interrogating the person. Like, give me a big white light and let me shine it over them while I ask them 100 questions.
So I guess together we could be like good cop, bad cop, right? Because then you could ask the questions, I'll just ramble, and then maybe we'll have a full conversation.
That's true. That is true. Or they'll just be like, what a bunch of weirdos and walk away.
That's also fair. That's
Yeah,
fair. I wouldn't blame them in one bit.
me either. No, not at all.
What's one of your green flags in friendship?
I think about communication. And that can be such a broad aspect of it, but we talked a little bit about this, like reciprocating communication is big for me. So always being the one to reach out. After a while, you just kind of feel like, why am I doing this? What's the purpose if they're not going to reach back out to you? So just consistency in that communication, which I think also kind of goes into being dependable, because if they're not reciprocating, how do you depend on them? And I think for
Right.
friendship, we want that. We want people who we can depend on and rely on to be a part of our life.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. We were laughing when we were talking about this week, how I assumed that we would come up with a bunch of the same things just because that's naturally what happens. And this was one that we both had in common because if it's not reciprocated, because I've been in both kinds of relationships, right? In friendship, where you're the one that's always reaching out and always making the plans. But then when you have another friend who is reciprocating, it feels like a breath of fresh air, right? Because it's not 100% on you to make the relationship happen. And so you're right. Like, I think they do go hand in hand because a dependable person is someone who's also responding. So you know where you stand with them, as opposed to someone who's just kind of aloof, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we all get busy and things come up, but when it's like weeks after weeks after weeks of not hearing from them and you've texted them a few times or you've tried to call a couple of times, and it's just kind of like, okay, what am I doing in this friendship right now? And if it's not being reciprocated, is it is it worth continuing the investment in that?
Yeah, and I've had this conversation recently because I know some people that like we just laugh about how responding to text messages just doesn't happen. And so it's not, I never take it personally. Like I'll reach out or whatever and text them. And I try to be mindful of like what time I'm texting them because I know like their work schedule or whatever. And so I try to be more mindful of like, hey, if I text them right now and it's 12:30, chances are pretty high that they're extremely busy. So if I don't hear from them, that's okay. But I've also learned through this, like, it's better to just take it in stride and not take it personally. Like, me a few years ago would have been devastated and, like, either hurt by it or overthinking it to the point where, like, oh my goodness, I did something wrong, or maybe I didn't say it the right way. But I've tried to learn to take it in stride and be like, hey, we're all busy. If you get back to me, cool. If not, no big deal. Like, I'm not holding that against you by any means. But I think that's a little bit different than not reciprocating the friendship at all. And there is a very big difference.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I am the world's worst at I wear my Apple Watch every single day and messages will come up on my Apple Watch and I'll glance at them and then that clears it from my phone as a new message. And it might be days before I realize that I've missed this message especially if it's not someone that I talk to on a daily basis. I'm like, "Oh, I didn't see that. I'm so sorry." Like, and I find myself having to apologize a lot of times. So now I have to get in the habit of just double checking it, making sure I didn't accidentally clear a message. It's rare for you and I to go a full day without talking to each other, so that's normal. But
Right.
there's other friends where it might be every other day or, a few days here and there. And I saw it on my phone, but I didn't acknowledge it with them. And then I feel awful about that.
Yeah, my downfall is that I'll type out the message and then not hit send. So it'll be sitting there and then I'll go back and like, why haven't they responded? It's been a few hours. And then I look down, I'm like, oh darn it. Like I
Never seen
never hit
it.
send. And then I'll always say, oh, I'm so sorry I didn't respond. I had like, so that's where I definitely have the downfall for sure because I'll think that I've responded. And then like if I'm texting my sister, because we chat throughout the day, every day, And I'm like, wow, she didn't respond. I'll look back and be like, well, silly goose, you didn't actually send the message. So, um, yeah, I think that that's also something that I do too. But we're all human. We're
It
just trying our
happens.
best.
But you said interesting that you were like, did I do something wrong? Not having that reciprocating of a friendship or people not texting you back right away or and coming to learn like sometimes that just happens, right? And the day-to-day stuff comes up. I took a similar in the past. I used to think, oh, I'm not good enough for them or I'm not worth their time. And it kind of became like a self-worth issue for me. And then just realizing like, oh, we are busy people with busy lives and things come up. Then whenever it goes and it's elongated that way, you do start to question the value that you have in a person's life if they are never responding to you and always saying making up a reason why and things like that. You start to question, well, if I'm not worth 2 minutes of your time for a text message back or a phone call back or when it's convenient for the other party, I think those are the parts for me that kind of takes away from the friendship and that makes me reevaluate where I'm at with a person.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and I had to learn that over time, right? Because it wasn't until I had a little bit of hindsight in the friendships that I was recognizing that it was not being reciprocated. And like there were some signs, right? But I either was ignoring them or wasn't aware enough to be like, oh, this is one-sided. Like I think we might be friends with them, but it's not necessarily true that they're friends with us, if that makes sense. And that took a long time to learn because you have to kind of have enough um data, right? Like you have to have enough of a friendship with them for a long period of time to recognize like, is this really worth the investment? Because it seems like we're spending all of this time investing, but at the same time, it's not that they're investing back. And it's hard to come to terms with that. Um, but at some point you have to evaluate it and say, okay, I might take a step back from this because I don't know that we're on the same page right now.
Yeah, and that's okay. And it's sometimes it's just seasons of life too. Like you're just in different stages and different areas and it's not a bad thing. It just happens sometimes. You just kind of fall apart, but that communication piece I think for me in friendship is huge, especially in those long-term friendships and the ones that you're building on and building that trust bond with that you're able to lean in on them and if you can't, then you know that they can't be dependable either on that piece if you don't feel that connection.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
will say I've had some friends over the years and they were so dependable. Like whether it was, I need a babysitter last minute or when my father-in-law passed away a few years ago, it was very sudden. We had no warning signs. He passed away at work. So we got the call and like late at night one night and that whole week and that just kind of turned our lives upside down for several weeks following. And we had friends that were just like, whatever you need. Like we dropped the boys off with them, left them there overnight so we could go be with my mother-in-law. And those were the moments that I was like, these are friends that are dependable. And I'm really thankful for that because we didn't know what was happening from one minute to the next. And to just have someone to show up and, you know, be there was so helpful.
The next thing that I think about with communication, I think all of these you could have so many subtopics off of main topics that we talk about, but communication, the other side is honest feedback or just honest conversation and sit down. We've had those conversations where we sit and we say, I need to tell you something, or we did it right before this call. Just had something on my heart that was heavy and kind of weighing me down. And just being able to have that honest conversation and then have the person reciprocate honest feedback to you and not to tear you down by any means, but to say, yeah, maybe that was not the right way to go, or maybe you're right, that probably didn't come out exactly the way it should have, but it's okay. And to help build you back up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, sometimes we shy away from honest feedback, I think, because so much of life feels fragile. Like, how true is this friendship, right? Like, I don't want to hurt their feelings, or I don't want to let them down, or I don't want to jeopardize what we have. And if I say it out loud, maybe it will. Right. And, um, but there's some value in having honest conversation because we need that. We need to have a safe space with somebody who knows our heart and can share that with us and give us that feedback so that we can take it to heart and either change and course correct, or also just be willing to have an open dialogue about things that matter and know that it's okay. Like, we've shared some really hard conversations even recently, and it sucks in the moment to have to share those things, but then also knowing that we have each other's back at the end of the day, and we'll make it through it. It's going to be hard, but we have to do it. Or
Yeah. No, I think if you're not willing to have those conversations, the person isn't given the opportunity to weigh it on their morals and on their values. And at that point, if somebody's sharing their honest feedback with you, it's your responsibility to weigh their words. First of all, hopefully you know that it's coming from a place of love and respect for who you are as a person. And then you can take that information and that feedback and weigh it against your life and decide how much of it you're going to apply or not apply, because really that's your choice at the end of the day. But it would be wrong of them to hold back from you the things that they're seeing if there's somebody that you have come to build a trust with and that you've come to allow them to speak into your life. They would be doing you a disservice by not coming to you and sharing the things that they are worried about or that they have seen manifesting in your life and sharing that with you.
yeah, it kind of reminds me of that phrase, take it with a grain of salt. Like, if there's somebody in your life that you don't trust and they come to give you advice, you're going to take that with a grain of salt. Like, it doesn't have any value or worth to you because they've proven that their advice isn't helpful, right? Like, they don't have that place in your life. And on the flip side of that, if they are a good friend who has earned that place in your life, then when they come to you with something that's honest and real and says, hey, maybe you shouldn't have responded this way to that person, you're going to take that and actually really weigh it, like you said. And, oh, no, she is right. Like, I really shouldn't have done that. Or, whatever the conversation is. But the other side of that is also, if there's people in your life that are trying to give advice and they haven't earned that spot, how often do we say, well, I'm going to take that with a grain of salt because
Yeah.
it's not necessarily helpful because of who it's coming from?
No, that's fair. And they may not know you either, right? So they may not know the full side or the full perspective of the story. Or I think honest feedback goes into another thought that I had about encouraging your friends, and challenging them to step out of the comfort zone. So encouragement can look like telling someone, "Hey, I see that you're stuck here. Like maybe you should try A, B, C, or D, and get out of that spot that you're in." And sometimes that is kind of making us take that step forward out of something that's comfortable or a situation that we've settled down into that we know necessarily isn't right for us. Maybe it's your career, maybe it's a social situation or whatever.
I
And
agree.
we talk a lot about our spiritual growth, back and forth on our podcast. Maybe it's just that alone. Maybe it's joining a new group. Maybe it's serving in a new ministry. Like there's just so many different things that you can encourage people into to help them grow, either in their physical or in their spiritual walks.
Absolutely. I think that's huge because if you're encouraging each other, helping each other grow in those areas is really important. And if you're noticing that maybe they're not growing, encouraging them and challenging them, like, hey, I noticed this, like, can I help you, hold you accountable for that? And because sometimes, you need that push in the right direction because maybe you're feeling it internally, like, oh man, I'm not where I want to be, but you don't know the next step to take. But that friend could come along like, hey, I've been there and let's do this together. So let's take this step and see how that helps. And I'll hold you accountable to that. And having those kinds of conversations is really important because we need each other and we're supposed to be able to grow together. And if we're encouraging each other in that, then we can all move in the right direction together, right?
Yeah, that's a huge, huge green flag for me. I didn't even write that one down. Accountability. How many times I will raise all my hands and all my feet on this one. Have you
How
said
many
to
feet do you
someone, just two? I'm a normal human, I swear. But
have?
I will raise all the appendages for this one. How many times have we said to someone, yes, I will keep you accountable, or we've asked for accountability in it, and that never happens? I am guilty as charged on that.
Same.
But
Yeah.
someone will say, keep me accountable on it. I don't reach out. I don't ask how they're doing. But on the flip side, I also don't seek out accountability because why? If it's not being reciprocated, right?
Yeah.
And
And
that's,
accountability is hard,
mhm,
right? Because you're asking the hard questions. And if you're not in a place to hear it, you don't want it. And so
yeah.
accountability is like that double-edged sword. Like, yes, we need it. However, are we genuinely ready for that kind of confrontation?
Yeah. We've been doing that just with each other such a small scale in my mind, but it's also such a huge scale at the same time. But just using our walking pads,
Yeah.
like I feel like the days that I have to text you and say I didn't walk today, it is like a pit in my stomach. Like, ugh, I have to confess that I didn't do the thing that I said I was going to do.
Yeah.
And just having that accountability of someone who says, okay, that's fine, but tomorrow do it, or
Yeah.
today's a new day, you can do it today, or whatever. Accountability is a huge green flag for me because I think it's something that we don't do enough for our friends, and we don't reach out enough to our friendships to hold ourselves accountable and truly reciprocate it. If someone's asking for accountability, truly being the friend to reach out to them and say, hey, how did you do with this today? Maybe it's setting a calendar reminder that every other day you're checking in with them, or once a week you're checking in with them. But setting the boundaries with the person you're asking to hold you accountable. Hey, I'm going to walk on my walking pad every day this week. Can you reach out to me on Friday and see how I did? Set the
Yeah.
terms of the accountability with each other.
Absolutely. I can remember one day we were texting back and forth. I was in like a funk and I was like, I haven't really like read my Bible in a long time and I was feeling bad about it. And um we were just talking and you're like, okay, so let's for the next 20 minutes, we're gonna put our phones down and we're gonna read our Bibles. And then after 20 minutes, come back and we'll see how it went. And I was so thankful for that in that moment because it was just the push that I needed because I was like sitting in my own thoughts and my own feelings of like, oh man, I should have done this more. I really wanted to do it and I haven't. And you get in our head about any of that stuff. And so to have that push where you're like, okay, well, we can do it right now. Like, let's just do it. And so we did. We put our phones down and we read, and then we came back and I said, how'd it go? And sometimes it's just that simple. Like, did you drink water today? Oh, you know what? You're right. I haven't. Like, and I jokingly do that with another friend because she forgets to eat throughout the day. Like it's just at the end of the day, she's like, oh man, I feel sad or whatever. I'm like, well, what have you eaten today? And sometimes that'll provoke that thought to be like, oh, you know what? I only had a cheese stick, So maybe we should start there and then go from there. And so accountability, I feel like we hear the word and it has a negative connotation for whatever reason. And if we could just maybe flip the script and try to encourage each other in like those little moments. Like, did you drink enough water today? you
Yeah.
know, and start there. But then that opens the door to be like, okay, accountability is not that scary. They're just trying to help me succeed. And that's what I need. And
Yeah.
giving each other the grace to like make the mistakes, but also be like, hey, I love you. And I know that you didn't do it today. Tomorrow's a new day. So let's try again. And leave it at that. Like, it doesn't have to be big and scary. It can just be the next step. And sometimes we just need that other person to say out loud, you can do the next step. So let's do it
Yeah.
together.
And sometimes that just looks like encouraging you to get to your goal and then celebrating the success with the person, like once you hit that goal. And we need accountability to do both of those things.
Absolutely. Because it's so easy to fall off the track that if you have someone that's doing it with you, you can be like, oh, let's get back on track.
Yeah. I went through that whole weight loss journey of, trying to figure out what was best for my body, what was going to work with my body, and meeting with my dietitian on a regular basis. And the moment that I fell off of that path of making the right choices for myself, the first appointment that I canceled was my dietitian appointment for my 3-month follow up with her just to see how things were going. And then I canceled it again and again until finally she called me and she was like, "Hey, this isn't good because this tells me that you're not doing the things that you're supposed to be doing and you're not on the track that you're supposed to be doing." Because I knew I had to sit in that little room with her and pull out my phone and go through my app that we log the food on that goes into her system when I hit submit and shows her how my 3 months is going. And so then she wasn't getting the logs. And so accountability can be uncomfortable. It's an action word at the end of the day, and it can be very uncomfortable, but it can be so, so necessary. And the moments that I am doing really, really well and I am on track, I have no problem walking through her door. Just saw her a couple months or a couple weeks ago, had no problem walking through the door because I knew I was making better choices along the path. So, yeah, it can be uncomfortable, but it's an action word and it's necessary in relationship. What are some other green flags? And then I think just respecting boundaries too. Obviously, if we're going to have accountability, we have to respect each other's boundaries in that too, and setting those prefaces.
What are some boundaries that are helpful when it comes to relationship? Like, what do you think? Because I know that sometimes we need boundaries to keep us safe, and to have healthy boundaries. But what does that look like when we're in a relationship that's being healthily reciprocated? How do you have boundaries?
I think we've talked about this in the past about your expectations and communicating what your expectations are. I think communicating your boundaries is also important. If you have that friendship that maybe just needs a little extra nurturing, letting them know, hey, if I don't get back to you right away, this is why I'm at work or whatnot there, and setting that boundary of I'm going to respond to the text message after. But I think too, in friendship, boundaries can be just about your own communication style, like explaining how
Yeah.
you like communication. And I think boundaries really come into play when you're first starting to build that relationship with someone, because over time you just kind of naturally fall into those boundaries with one another. But really setting, how do you communicate? How do you best receive feedback? If we're going to be open to honest feedback and we're going to be open to accountability, we may need to set the boundaries of how we receive that best, and explaining that. For me, coming at me a little defensive probably isn't going to work. But sitting down and
Right.
just having honest, heartfelt conversation is going to be the best approach for me. I don't know anyone who's going to want defensive communication, but that's what comes off the top of my head when I first think of it. But yeah, I think just learning each other's communication styles and being able to set those boundaries and saying, when you and I have had those hard talks, we've always been in a good place to have them. But let's say if you were to call me on the phone and say, hey, I've just had something on my heart. It's really been bothering me. I really want to share it with you. But if I'm in a not a good headspace that day, maybe setting the boundary there and saying, hey, I appreciate that you're coming to me right now isn't a good time. Can I reach out to you tomorrow and maybe set up a time for us to talk? And really just knowing where you're at and allowing yourself the space to schedule the time if you need to. Not everything has to be done immediately, but
Mhm.
recognizing that the other person has something on their heart they need to share or something that they want to share with you, and scheduling the time so you're in the best frame of mind to also do that. And so boundaries are hard because it's not cut and dry always. It may ebb and flow as you are in relationship with people and you're constantly kind of setting those boundaries.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that like at the front end, like saying, "Hey, I might not always be able to respond," is freeing for me to know, right? Because then you're not sitting there wondering, "Oh my goodness, did I say it the wrong way? Was it because I used a period and I shouldn't have?" Right? But I think you just dropped so many great nuggets about boundaries. And maybe that's another conversation we should dive into more later on. But I think overall, having green flags in friendship is so important. And we should highlight those more than we should talk about red flags, because those are important too. But sometimes we overlook the green flags of, hey, we've got a dependable friend who's willing to hold me accountable and walk with me through the hard things, say the hard things, and also be willing to just have open communication. And so, yeah, if you are listening today and you see the green flags in some of your friends, maybe just shoot them a text message and say, hey, I'm really thankful for you and our relationship and what this friendship means to me, because sometimes those things get left unsaid, and we should be willing to try to say them more, because we could really gain from hearing those things out loud. We might feel it inside, but not necessarily say it out loud. So I think that it's important to share those things when we see those green flags in play and say, hey, thank you for holding me accountable. I really needed that. Or thank you for encouraging me to finish this project. I really needed that. And be willing to say it out loud, because we can all benefit from having that kind of encouragement.
That's a wrap on this episode of Two Main Friends in a Podcast. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram. You can also send us an email at twomainfriends@gmail.com. And as always, leave us a review wherever you're listening.